Can you talk a little bit?
Uh,
When you first go out and freelance, a lot of people like to, give a break to their customers and say, well, I'm just learning, and so I'll give you this great discounted rate. Why even work for a client if all you're doing is experimenting and, in effect, wasting their money and the possibility of their product doing what it needs to do? Your job as a designer is to help them communicate some message to their end user, their final clientele, or to send sell a product, clarify a message, whatever it is. You just never know how well something's going to do until it's out there doing its job. I'm sure you go into a grocery store or look in a magazine or on television and you see design where you're thinking, that design sucks, and there's a good chance it does. There's a lot of design that's out there that people paid really good money for that doesn't work, and you just don't know if it's going to work or not until it's out there performing or not performing. Say you do a logo for your mom's friend, and she makes sweaters just for a few people. A logo like that would be different than doing a new logo for Coca-Cola. It may end up being the same amount of work, but one is definitely has a lot more value because Coca-Cola can make a lot more money off of a logo than your mom's friend can. So things are priced accordingly. You can call around, talk to different designers. If you can find professionals that have been doing it already that can mentor you and help you in pricing, I'm sure there's a lot of designers that would be happy to do that. In the design field, we don't want things priced so cheaply that it makes it impossible for other designers to work. When you get higher priced ticket items, that generally entails more work on your part, but the work is mostly administrative, research, marketing, where you're building a case for your design. You're not necessarily making a better design, you're just doing more work building a case for your design. That was very weird information to give out. If you give a really cheap price on a project in exchange for experience, the problem is people aren't going to trust you because it's so cheap and they know you're just getting experience, and because they don't trust you, the job will be a nightmare for you. They will walk all over you and they will art direct you to death because they don't trust you. On the other hand, if you come out of the gate saying this is going to be, instead of $250, it's going to be $2,500, and I'm a designer and that's the way it is, and I need a 50% deposit because that's how I work. If you're fully confident in asking for what's a fair price and are able to deliver that message, they're going to feel like you know what you're doing and they will leave you alone. So surprisingly, you'll make a lot more money and the job will be a lot easier because they'll feel like you're the professional and they'll just let you do it. So, it takes practice, but it's worth keeping that in mind. As you start working, you need to build your confidence and your ability to sell yourself. So as you're going through a relationship with a client or a new project and say it's not going so well, just know that you're able to take that experience and learn and grow from it. You can even learn and grow from it in the middle of a job, like the way your relationship was with your client. If it's going kind of funny, you can learn right then and make adjustments right during that job and see how it goes. See if there's a different way you can approach the job that would have an effect on the way the client deals with you or the way the job goes. Everything you go through is a learning experience, particularly if it's not going well, because then you have a chance to make adjustments and make it better. It helps you be aware of areas that can make jobs difficult. If you start out with jobs that are, where you do really well and they go really easy, of course that's great, but obviously it doesn't give you a chance to learn how to do better because you weren't able to see the holes in your game, so to speak. And everybody's got holes in their game, and until you run into them, you won't know how to plug them. So anytime you run into trouble, take that as an opportunity to plug those holes, figure out different ways to deal with things or strategize differently, work with the client differently, present work differently, whatever it is. Everything takes tweaking, and it's the same for everybody. Nobody comes out of the gate knowing, exactly how to handle every situation. You talk to any designer, particularly successful ones, and they'll have a million scary stories about things they've been through or bad things that they've been through on their road to success. Probably anybody in any industry, anybody that's gotten good at anything is going to have a whole bunch of failures up to that point. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it's being able to fail and get back up and keep going that just makes you better. Clients always remember the weakest link in a portfolio. When they look at a portfolio, they see all this work, and of course in their mind, this is the very best work of this designer. So if this is all the designer's very best work, then the weakest piece in the portfolio is probably what they're going to average. And so they subconsciously focus on your weakest piece, and they believe that to be your average work, and that's the work they would get. So you need to be able to pinpoint the weakest piece in your portfolio and make sure it's up to snuff. You don't want any pieces hiding out in your portfolio. Be careful about trying to cover too many bases. If you put in so many types of things like photography and illustration and claymation and whatever, if you're showing too many things, it dilutes your portfolio, because people don't know what they're going to get. When somebody looks at a portfolio, they want to know what they're going to hire. So if we say we had a packaging project, or say we do a lot of packaging here, and we're looking at portfolios, we of course will focus on the portfolio that's primarily packaging. If we see somebody that lives to do packaging, that's who we want doing packaging. We don't want somebody that can also do oil paintings and claymation and photography and puppetry and whatever. We want good focused portfolios to understand who it is we're hiring. Make sure you include examples of things in your portfolio that are valuable to potential firms that would hire you. A lot of times I like to tell people, we see a lot of portfolios that have posters, CD covers, stuff like that, where it's relatively simple design, or like magazine editorial layout, where it's just like a feature spread where the design is really crazy and really free. And of course, it's for a lot of people, it's easy to make stuff like that look good. What's hard is to take something that's straight and potentially really boring and make that look good. So I tell a lot of people, if you want a really strong portfolio and you haven't had a chance to do something in school that's really good, a lot of times I'll say, you should go out and find like a brochure for heating and air conditioning or something, or some plumber that just looks really lame, and just as a portfolio piece, redo it so it's just an awesome piece. And do it in a way so it's not like, I took this heating and air conditioning brochure and I made it all crazy, because that's not what it's about. It's about, that piece would be about selling heating and air conditioning, or heating and air conditioning repair, or whatever. And so the job of that is to sell that. And so if you're able to sort of, making something, really potentially exciting to look at and do its job of selling properly, that's an incredible skill. You should be able to take a job like that and find inspiration in the challenge of making it work, as opposed to the frustration of having a boring job. Any job can be an exciting, really cool, satisfying job. You should have the feeling that if you do a job really well, that really works for the client, is the ultimate satisfaction, as opposed to just the coolest looking work. We see a lot of people, when they're working on a job, they are working with clients that start to have a lot of opinions about how it's going, and start to really manhandle the designers and start walking all over them and giving them orders, and the designers start to give up and say, like, whatever, I will make that bigger, I will make it that color blue, and I'm gonna change the font to that, and they just give up being a designer and they end up being a production person for an art director who doesn't really know how to art direct. But if they're paying the bills and they're paying you to be a designer, you need to be a designer. So that means you need to take their input, listen carefully to what they're saying, and then reinterpret it as a designer that you are, and then execute what it is they're looking for. So if they say, you know, I want this logo bigger and I want that to be blue, well, there's a reason for that. You know, if they want the logo bigger, it may be that their identity is unclear. What's the best way to make the identity more clear? You know, it might be that you've got too much stuff going on around it and it's confusing the message. Or if they want the type bigger, maybe just the font's wrong. You know, you need to use your skills to help make decisions to satisfy the client. So they're not going to know necessarily the best way to handle things. And it's not their job to know how to art direct. You know, they didn't go to school for that. They don't really know how to do it. So you can't necessarily have a problem with a client that doesn't know how to art direct. And you can't fault the client for just calling out ideas, because they don't know any other way about making adjustments to a design that's not suiting them, or that they feel like doesn't work. And you got to remember too, as a designer, most of the time you're doing design for an average person out there. You're not doing design for other designers. And oftentimes the client is a good example of the average consumer. And if it's not sitting well with them, it probably won't sit well with a lot of average people. What we like to do is we like to show design work to people that are not designers, just average people off the street, people that we know. They're not design oriented. And we try to just show them stuff without a lot of leading questions. You know, we just say, hey, what do you think of this product? Or we show them a brochure and you know, like say we're doing a brochure for a file cabinet company. We'll just show them the brochure that we've designed and say, what do you think about these file cabinets? And then we see how they react. You know, if they're like, I don't get it, or I don't understand what these file cabinets are doing, or, you know, then that's a really good way to find out if your design is working. You know, that's a lot different than going to a friend and saying, what do you think of this brochure I did? Because then they're thinking about you as a friend, and they might say something like, you know, wow, this is amazing, it looks really cool, I love all the art on it, but they're not really using it in the way that it's meant to be used.
Jesus.